Okay, recording in progress. So that means we're live. Welcome, everybody, as you come into the room. Just give everybody a chance to come out of the waiting room and into the room. How are you today? It is really, man, like spring just really popped here in Keene, New Hampshire. Don't know where you are. Some of you, I know, are not even in this region, but yeah, the buds are all out. Wow, I did that program on allergy. And man, I was not really prepared. Allergies really snuck up on me. So next year, I have to put it on my calendar to get this stuff going in my system before the season starts. I'm pretty good now, but took a little while. Yeah, so you have to start. I did say that when I was doing that presentation. You really need to start like a month ahead with your quercetin and that kind of thing. And you do. I found that out. You really do. So yeah, as you're coming in, Wondrous Roots, your health from the ground up. My name is Rebecca Becky Montrone. I have a business here in Keene, New Hampshire called Wondrous Roots. I am a holistic healthcare practitioner with a degree in holistic nutrition. And I'm also an herbalist. So I have my compounding pharmacy father background with wanting to make medicines to treat whatever various ailments people have or to prevent, ideally. Also, work one-on-one with clients and personal consultation and health consultations. So I work with everything, all ages and every kind of illness out there, from wellness, preventing illness, and then all the way towards really advanced illness such as cancers and things like that. So yeah, we're located here at 103 Roxbury Street, the Miller Forge building in downtown Keene. Roxbury Street is one of the main conduits there around Central Square. And we are open 9:30 to 5, Monday through Friday are our open shop hours. So I see people in my office for client consultation. We also have a full shop of supplements, dietary supplements, and including the things that we make ourselves. We have a wonderful skincare line, all of the formulas and single herbs that I have for herbal medicine, and then a lot of supplements that I choose from third-party providers that I use frequently with my clients and also make available to the general public. Here in the shop, we also have a full online store with all of that stuff on it, shopwondrousroots.com. And if you want to get in touch with me, the number here is 603-439-2603, but you can also reach out contact us from either of our websites, the online store, shopwondrousroots.com or wondrousroots.org. Both have a contact us. Those messages come to my private email. Nobody else is aware of them, and I will be the one to respond. So anyway, I think that does it for my intro. Let's see. What do I want to say? Today, I'm going to be talking about, I started doing a series on getting away from C.R.A.P, crap, in our food. And so going to be doing that. I'm starting with a little bit of a series on sweeteners and starting with fructose, which I think if you don't know much about fructose itself, which is simply in its simplest form, fruit sugar, and then how we got to the high fructose corn syrup and what the dangers to our health are, then you'll be interested in this. So I am going to, again, remind you how you can participate. If you want to chime in, it doesn't have to be on this topic. It can be on anything you want to talk about, ask me a question, or offer some of your own wisdom, knowledge. You can raise your hand and I will call on you and we can all hear you talk and I'll respond to you that way. Or you can type it into the chat or you can type it into the Q&A. I think that makes that pretty clear. While I'm talking with you here, I'm just going to open up my folder and grab my presentation, Fructose Fiasco, and get it kind of so that it looks like it's like in a good width and everything for everybody to see. And you know how fussy I am, those of you who are used to me with does it come down to the bottom of the slide and not go to the next slide? It always kind of changes up a little bit. But anyway, that said, we'll do our best. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Share. Okay. And then I get my chat over here. Okay. And then I'm going to, the chat is there, and then my participants, you are here, so I can keep an eye on you, make sure you're not chewing gum. Fooling around, passing notes. You can tell I'm aging myself because I don't think kids do that in school anymore. They're more like on their phones, all that stuff. All right, so here we go. I think that's just about right. Okay, so I think that this is, it's just, I was talking to my husband Dale about this morning, and he was saying this is just, exactly what Bobby Kennedy is going on after with, as head now of Health and Human Services, Bobby Kennedy Jr., trying to wheedle this poison out of our food supply. And we're going to come to find out that even if you're careful about your food, we're all getting high fructose corn syrup is where this kind of is building towards in this presentation today. And you have to really be very, very careful, be very savvy to stay away from it, even to cut it down to an appreciable amount. But you're also going to see in this presentation, like how our foods are playing so heavily into our modern epidemic of chronic disease. Much more dangerous than something, a bacterium or a virus or something like that comes through. These are the chronic diseases that are killing us. Those things come and go. These chronic diseases are killing us every day. They're killing us. They're not, they don't seem to be getting, to be less in, what do I want to say? They're increasing. They're not decreasing. And that is the goal that, Bobby Kennedy Jr. has said he wants to do is decrease these chronic diseases. So I'm going to find out how we are really contributing a lot of times without even having a clue. So anyway, let's go into this, fructose, because fructose is fruit sugar, right? It is, okay, here I go again, trying to get really picky with my slide. Okay, I'll settle for that. Okay, so anyway, what is fructose? Fructose is a naturally occurring simple sugar. It's a monosaccharide, which means it is a single molecule sugar. Chemically classified alongside glucose and galactose is one of the three building blocks of carbohydrates, often referred to as fruit sugar. Fructose is found naturally in fruits, honey, and root vegetables. It is the sweetest of all naturally occurring sugars, about 1.2 to 1.8 times sweeter than sucrose, which is what we know as table sugar. Okay. Its chemical structure, for you people who want to hone in on that, it has blah, 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 blah. A 6-carbon sugar with a molecular formula structure distinct from glucose. I think that's important. Fructose is a ketose sugar. It has a ketone group, while glucose is an aldose sugar. It has an aldehyde group. In aqueous or water-based solutions, fructose exists in several forms, linear and cyclic, but primarily as a 5-membered ring Furanose form. Okay. Natural sources of fructose, fruits, especially high, would be like apples, pears, grapes, watermelon, honey. Sweet, some root vegetables like beets and sweet potatoes, and small amounts are found in other foods, some nuts, some grains. You can see kind of a listing here of some of them. The higher grapes, banana, mango, apples, pineapple, kiwi up there, pear, and then it starts to kind of go off. When you get into things like berries, they're not even listed there because berries are very low in fructose. So if you're trying to really cut sugar down in your diet, that's sticking with the fruits and things that are very low in fructose is a good thing to watch for. So there's high fructose corn syrup. Crystalline fructose came along sooner. So you can see this, you can actually buy fructose as a sweetener. The crystal is highly purified and used as a sweetener in some processed foods and beverages, but then high fructose corn syrup, industrial manufactured from corn starch. Okay. So unlike glucose, fructose is metabolized almost entirely by the liver. When consumed in small amounts from natural foods, this poses no problem. That's the way the food supply was created. Our creator, God, put our foods on the earth and intended for us to, enjoy them. And without all of the processed foods and things, basically that wouldn't be a problem. And with the balance of foods. But when consumed in large quantities, especially in the form of processed sweeteners, the liver becomes overwhelmed, which has profound metabolic consequences, which we're going to get into in a little bit. So let's take a look back at the history of from fruit to where we are today with high fructose corn syrup and just about everything in a package or that's packaged up. Fructose first became available as a liquid in the 1970s. The food industry unlocked a new chapter in human sugar consumption, liquid fructose. Prior to this time, fructose intake came almost exclusively from whole foods like fruits and honey. The average American consumed about 5 grams of fructose per day, a small natural amount that the liver could easily handle, no problem. With the advent of industrial food processing technologies, however, the ability to isolate and concentrate and dissolve fructose into liquid form opened the floodgates. So here we are. Early developments. Liquid fructose syrups, okay, advances in enzymatic processing techniques allowed manufacturers to hydrolyze fructose from sources like sugar beets, sugar cane, and cornstarch. What's really interesting about that too is that the sugar beets and corn are two of the most highly glyphosated crops in the United States. In other words, they not only are what we make fructose from, liquid fructose, but they also are very pesticided with glyphosate, which is very, very harmful. So you're getting a double whammy there when you think about it. Anyway, liquid fructose syrups, not yet the high fructose corn syrup, became attractive to food companies because they were sweeter than sucrose, table sugar. They dissolved easily in beverages and processed foods. They had a long shelf life and prevented crystallization in products like soft drinks and baked goods. So that's sometimes the thing when you're making anything, when you're manufacturing anything, things that make the product more homogenized, they stay together well, they look nice, they feel good when you're drinking or eating them or whatever, those things. So they had those properties. Then having a long shelf life, you didn't have to worry so much about things going out of date, or you could put your date way out there on your expiration date. So there you go. So there was a rise in the consumption naturally. With liquid fructose now cheap, readily available, it started being heavily added to sodas, candies, pastries, and other processed foods. As a result, average daily fructose consumption in the US skyrocketed. This is very remarkable, from about 5 grams per person per day to 33 grams per person per day during the 1970s. So this was when people were getting their fructose from fruit and honey to 33 grams, right? People probably could have even been, probably their diets could have benefited from more fruit at that point in time, and probably today, right? But we're getting 33 grams per person per day during the 70s, So my glasses are bugging me because there's a, have to do that. That should help. Okay. The key takeaway here. The early surge was not due to high fructose corn syrup, HFCS. It was pure fructose or liquid fructose syrup, distinct from high fructose corn syrup, which contains a mixture of glucose and fructose. And that's what makes that a different animal. You had industry motivation. The post-World War II era saw an explosive growth in packaged foods and the mass marketing of soft drinks. Food companies were searching for cheaper, more shelf-stable sweeteners that could also appeal to evolving American tastes towards sweeter food. The more you eat sweets, the more you want them, and the less something mildly sweet tastes sweet. This is like how parents ruin the palates of their children, their infants and toddlers, as they think, oh, I'll give them a little treat and give them something that's hyper sweet, right? Well, you know, your child's taste buds would be very happy with some fruit. The sweet taste buds would be totally satisfied, but then we ruin them. We also ruin them for ourselves as adults. And the good thing is you can really change that quickly. You just cut the sugar out and you're unhappy for a couple of days, right? Like when I first started drinking years ago, my coffee without sugar. It didn't taste good to start, but it took like 2 days and I didn't even like sugar in it. And now I do put a little honey in my tea. I've become like a teetotaler. I drink tea all day long and I do put a little bit of honey in there. And it tastes really good. But I know if I just if I stopped doing that for like a day, I wouldn't want it. So that's the really good thing about your sweet taste buds. I found anyway, that they do adjust pretty quickly. So anyway, fructose fit the bill. It was cheap to produce, chemically stable. They didn't have to worry about things changing the shelf life, things like that. They also could add it to things and it wouldn't crystallize. They could add it as a liquid to, say, a soda or something like that. And you have to worry about little specks of grains of fructose powder in your soda, that kind of thing. Sweet even at lower concentrations, so that saves money. We don't have to use as much sweetener. So anyway, the broader cultural backdrop of the 1970s with an economic emphasis on efficiency, mass production, and cost cutting in food manufacturing. Have any of you watched? These are really good, and I think they're on the History Channel. I'm not sure. I would have to ask Dale, but we've watched several of them, and they take you through like the frozen dinner thing, or they take you through chocolate and Hershey's and all of that. They take you all through the history. Those are really fun to watch. I love stuff like that. And good morning, Annabelle. Thank you for chiming in there. It is actually afternoon, but you might be on the West Coast, as some of you who are here, I know are. More than one of you are out West, so it would be morning. So anyway, with an economic emphasis on efficiency, mass production, cost cutting in food manufacturing created a perfect storm for proliferation of liquid fructose. Consumers were largely unaware that at that point in time that the metabolic impact of fructose differed dramatically from glucose or sucrose, setting the stage for decades of rising chronic disease. And again, this is what RFK Jr. wants to get on top of. He's not trying to mess with your food. He's not telling you what you can or can't eat. He's trying to alert the industry and alert consumers so that they put pressure on the industry. And I'm sure his power goes even stronger than that, his ability to influence in those areas. But these are the hidden things. You don't think anything of it. One of the big sources of high fructose corn syrup, for instance, is Campbell's tomato soup, or tomato soup in general, canned soups, but tomato soup is the biggest culprit. We're going to find things that you would think are just, it's convenient, but I mean, I'm not eating a candy bar, right? I'm having some soup. So that's how it's insidious, right? A lot of times you think you're eating good food. You're saying, I'm not eating junk, I'm really careful. So it can bite you just the same. So then we have the introduction of high fructose corn syrup. As if the rise of the liquid fructose wasn't enough, the food industry found a way to make take things even further, enter high fructose corn syrup, or HFCS. High fructose corn syrup was not merely another liquid sugar. It was a chemically engineered sweetener designed to be cheap, versatile, and more addictive. And it changed the landscape of American and eventually global health. Addictive high fructose corn syrup could be put into the class of what we call excitotoxins, in the sense that they are added to foods to make you want to eat more of them. And many times these foods have more than one of these excitotoxins that make you want to just eat more. And so you can see where we're going with processed food danger. Layered, one on the other, right? So anyway, the development in the late 1950s and early 1960s, Japanese researchers developed a process using glucose isomerase enzymes to convert glucose from cornstarch into fructose. By tweaking the ratios, manufacturers could create syrups with varying concentrations of fructose and glucose to get exactly what they wanted for whatever that particular product they were creating was going to be. And in 1967, high fructose corn syrup was first introduced commercially into the U.S. Food supply. Mass adoption came shortly after, especially into soft drinks and processed foods by the early to mid 1970s. Composition. This is where the chemistry matters. The science really does matter. Unlike pure liquid fructose, high fructose corn syrup is a blend. The common forms are HFCS 42, 42% fructose, 53% glucose used in baked goods, and then HFCS 55, 55% fructose, 42% glucose, which is used in soft drinks. Structurally similar to table sugar sucrose, but in high fructose corn syrup, the glucose and fructose are free floating. They're unbound chemically, whereas in sucrose, they are chemically bonded. This matters because free fructose and glucose are absorbed faster, spiking blood sugar and overloading the liver even more aggressively. Yeah, it's a health disaster. It is the health hijack, the fructose fiasco. Here's why it became so popular. Cost. Corn subsidies, right? The corn farmers granted government subsidies made high fructose corn syrup cheaper than cane sugar. High fructose corn syrup is liquid. It's easy to blend into beverages and processed foods without crystallizing. It's really interesting because when I make when I'm making our Wondrous lip balm, I'm stirring because that's how it starts. You have to stir everything. I have to really wait until it cools down, almost to the point where it's starting to solidify, to add my liquid stevia, because otherwise it will crystallize out. So I know what they're talking about. They're talking about when you use sweeteners in you're trying to make a product, and then it crystallizes on you and it's all gritty. So you don't want that. So this made it like really easy for them to avoid that problem. High fructose corn syrup extends the shelf life of many processed products, and the sweetness is comparable or slightly higher sweetness to table sugar sucrose at a lower cost. And again, these the corn they use to make high fructose corn syrup, and it's a different kind of thing. Like, it's not the same thing when you're eating your sweet corn from your farmer, your local farmer or whatever. We're talking about this corn that is grown for high fructose corn syrup, and then again, it's got all of these this high amount of Monsanto's glyphosate sprayed all on them as well. So anyway, you can imagine there was a consumption explosion by the 1980s and the 1990s. High fructose corn syrup was everywhere. Soft drinks, salad dressing, ketchup, yogurt, bread, soups, health bars, and more. Yes, you really have to watch the things that are really promoted as healthy. Granola bars, things like that. Always, if you're going to be careful, you have to become a very picayune label reader. At its peak, high fructose corn syrup accounted for more than 40% of all caloric sweeteners added to foods and beverages in the United States. Sweet deal or ticking time bomb. High fructose corn syrup wasn't just a sweet deal for manufacturers, it was a ticking time bomb for public health. Yeah, it's just not, things look so good when they come out new, right? This is great. This is so convenient. This is yummy. This is, oh, wow, how wonderful. And usually there's a trade-off, isn't there? I think. It's like when I was telling one woman about the dangers of microwaving food, right? Because it changes the molecular structure, the way the atoms rub together, the friction, which causes the heat, and it changes the genetic structure of things so that they can be manipulated, which is why microwave technology was invented in the first place. In fact, at one point in time, Russia outlawed microwaves because of that process. It makes problems with the food. It increases stress hormones. It increases cancer-causing compounds. Even if you're not using plastic, just this molecular tearing down of the genetic integrity. And so one woman said to me, well, how am I going to heat up my leftovers? And I kind of laughingly said, go out in the yard, get 2 sticks and start rubbing them together. She laughed, it was, but the thing is, usually the things that we like about modern inventions or versions of things is that they're more convenient. We don't have to do much to them. They're just perfect the way they are. Excuse me. Okay, so it's just kind of a timeline of events there. The late 1950s, early 1960s, enzymatic process to make the high fructose corn syrup developed. In 1967, it enters the US market. In the early 70s, it begins replacing cane sugar in processed foods. Late 70s, major soda companies switched from sucrose to high fructose corn syrup. And in the 80s and 90s, high fructose syrup consumption peaks in the US diet. Where it is found. When high fructose corn syrup took hold in the American food supply, it wasn't just added to obvious sweets like candy and soda. That's the important thing, one of the really important things to know. It rapidly infiltrated nearly every category of processed food, often in places where consumers would not expect to find added sugars at all, like you weren't expecting to find sugar in the first place, because it's not a sweet food. You're like, this isn't a sweet, so what's the deal? The widespread incorporation meant that even individuals trying to eat savory or low-fat foods were often unknowingly consuming significant amounts of fructose. So here's some of the food groups we have going here. Beverages, regular sodas, like, your regular sodas, sweetened teas, fruit punches, fruit-flavored drinks, sports drinks and energy drinks. So be careful with those. A lot of times people are like, I need to get my electrolytes and I need to get my, that kind of thing. Be careful, because what they're many times doing to make those things appealing to you so that you enjoy them and you want them and you're going to purchase them and consume them is high fructose corn syrup. Condiments and dressings. This is a real thing, because, what do I want to say? This is kind of, whoops. Condiments and dressings, because you really do have to be careful, ketchup and stuff like this. And of course, if you're a person who eats out a lot, you're going to be really in trouble here, because, you're not going to be able to expect that your restaurant is going to give you a tartar sauce without high fructose corn syrup. Oh yes, we'll carry a special one just for those of you who ask, or their ketchup or things like that. So people, not just fast food, if you're eating out at restaurants, and they could be really high-end restaurants or whatever, food that's served to you that you're not choosing yourself, that somebody else is serving, is probably always, laden with that stuff. So you really have to get the Annie's or whatever ketchup. You have to watch and look and the back labels on those things. If you're buying condiments, mustards, and you name it, salad dressings, which we never purchase. We just always make our own. Sweet and sour sauce, teriyaki, and sauces that you purchase. Just always look at the label if you're concerned, and you should be concerned. Baked goods or snack foods, commercials, and this kind of looks, is a very small representation in this photo here, but commercial breads and hamburger buns, muffins, donuts, pastries, breakfast cereals, cereal bars, granola bars, crackers, even like savory ones. They don't have to be graham crackers, just crackers. So again, label, label, label. Dairy and dairy alternatives, so flavored yogurts, pudding cups, coffee creamers. And don't think, because it's, and it isn't dairy, that you're getting, it's an alternative, so it must be healthy. I buy it at the co-op, so it's really healthy. And it's coconut, and it's not, so just, it might be. Or your dairy might be, your dairy things, but always, always look at your labels. Okay, there's an allergy sneeze. All right. Packaged and convenience foods, canned soups, especially tomato soup for whatever reason. Maybe because tomatoes are so acidic, they use more sweet to balance. I know that when I did a program on this years ago, I was on the radio at the time, and I was looking at a label I showed in my newsletter that went with it of the old, like 1950s or whatever, Campbell's soup, which had tomatoes as the first ingredient. It had vegetable oil, it had some sugar, like regular sucrose. And then showed like the new label at that point in time, which was just like high fructose corn syrup, I think was the first ingredient, and then tomatoes, and then canola oil or whatever. But canned fruits that are packaged in syrup, frozen dinners going to be loaded. Just think about people when you're in the hospital, or when you are when you're in the hospital, or when you're in assisted living or nursing home care or something like that. Oh, God help you, because that's what you get. You get all of those sweet things that come in single serving size, whether it be yogurt or applesauce or ice cream or do, and then your dinner, everything, then your drinks, everything. Of course, the medical industrial complex like melds and blends the food industry with the hospital industry, if you will. And so you have a beautiful customer in sick people, or people who are need help caring for themselves and live in long-term facilities. We just continue to take their health down when we should be promoting healing. That's one of my big sadnesses with the whole way things are today. Some surprising sources: peanut butter, the non-natural version, so easy to get. Tasty peanut butter that doesn't have any crap in it. I like the Teddy's. Jams and jellies, watch for that. Pickles, sweet pickles and relishes, baked beans, fast food items, buns, sauces, even some fries. A little quote here. By the late 20th century, high fructose corn syrup wasn't just a sweetener, it was practically a food group. Okay, now we go like, well, why does it matter? What's going on and why do I care? The massive increase in fructose consumption fueled by high fructose corn syrup laden foods has had profound and devastating impacts on public health. Unlike glucose, which the body uses widely for immediate energy needs, excess fructose is primarily handled by the liver, overwhelming its capacity and triggering a cascade of metabolic dysfunction. Dysfunctions, i.e. chronic disease, heart disease, diabetes, I would say cancers, although I didn't go into that in this presentation, but yeah, the liver, so important for all of health. So here we have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. How many times have people come to me and said, I've been told I have a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I don't drink. Why do I have fatty liver disease? So interesting too, because I had a guy back in probably 2006, I want to say. And his liver enzymes were off the chart. He had such a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, but he lived on Diet Coke. And so he was getting Diet Coke, he was getting aspartame. And when he cut out the Diet Coke, this all resolved. So that's another thing. In the next presentation I do in this series, I probably will just go over the other sweeteners and give them not like a whole day, a whole hour. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about aspartame. We'll talk about Splenda, sucralose, agave, which everybody thinks, oh, that's so natural. That's like really poison, agave syrup. We'll do that. But yeah, so you can really do your liver in and not drinking alcohol. Fructose is rapidly shunted into de novo lipogenesis, the creation of fat in the liver. Great. When the liver can't export the fat fast enough, it accumulates within liver cells, leading to fatty liver. Who cares? Like, why does that matter? Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease can progress to steatohepatitis, which is fatty liver, fibrosis, cirrhosis, and even liver cancer without a drop of alcohol being consumed. Fructose is now recognized as one of the primary drivers behind the epidemic of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Tons of people have this. If you have type 2 diabetes, or if you have cardiovascular disease, there's a good chance this is going on as well. Insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. Chronic liver fat accumulation interferes with insulin signaling. Fructose increases the liver's insulin resistance, even before systemic blood sugar changes are obvious. So your liver is becoming insulin resistant even before your blood sugar numbers are changing. When your doctor says, you need to take, you're pre-diabetic, or you're creeping up to pre-diabetic, right? On your blood glucose level or your HbA1c testing. So this matters because insulin resistance lays the groundwork for type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and cardiovascular disease, which are often seen all together, which is why in the mainstream medical approach, if you have type 2 diabetes, they'll put you on a statin drug, whether they see that you have cardiovascular problems or not, because they tend to bundle things, because they say this condition comes with comorbidities. In other words, people with type 2 diabetes often have cardiovascular disease too, or vice versa, that kind of thing. Which means really you need to bundle your lifestyle changes and maybe perhaps in some cases supplements to affect the comorbidities that happen with different things. Like I talked about pantethine for lipid regulation, for cholesterol balance, total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, HDL cholesterol, and triglycerides. And I talked about also how pantethine has an effect on insulin receptivity, insulin resistance or non-resistance, let's put it that way. And so these things often overlap. So if you saw a person with, from my perspective, if you were working with a person with type 2 diabetes, you would probably recommend pantethine because of the comorbidity of cardiovascular complication or involvement or overlapping situation there. Okay, this is what we don't want to see. Obesity and the visceral fat accumulation. So, all right. So, mechanism, fructose consumption increases visceral fat. The fat surrounding the internal organs far more efficient. It does this far more efficiently than glucose does. So here we go. This is the visceral fat, the so-called metabolic fat, the fat that is implicated in these things here. And fructose also fails to trigger safety hormones like leptin properly, promoting overeating. So when you're eating whole foods that don't contain like high fructose corn syrup, or you're getting a natural appetite. By the time you've eaten so much, the leptin signaling to your brain says it's time to stop. When leptin signaling doesn't happen, that doesn't occur, and you overeat. Also overeat because of the taste distortion I was talking about earlier, the excitotoxic effect of this high fructose corn syrup that makes you just can't eat one, right? You got to have more because it just tastes so good. And why it matters, visceral fat is highly inflammatory, strongly correlated with heart disease, stroke, cancer, and Alzheimer's disease. It's really got to go. I mean, we do have an obesity epidemic. And so what do we find out? Ozempic, there's your answer, because obesity is like, so obesity is so dangerous to your health. So we need to get more people on the GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic, because we need to get the fat down, and we do need to get the fat down. But if you're not addressing how the fat got up, like from the food supply, in very large measure, pun intended, then you're just going back the wrong way. You're saying, well, we don't have to change anything, but we'll just get rid of the fat. Well, no, because you're also getting tons of other health hits from these things besides your visceral fat and obesity. Glucose feeds your muscles. Fructose feeds your fat cells. So you can feed your muscles or you feed your fat cells. Here's another thing, elevated uric acid and gout. So fructose metabolism generates uric acid as a byproduct. You'll often, usually when it comes to gout, you will have people recommending to drop your purines, right? So your shellfish and your lobster and your things like that, and your protein. You can't have meats and all this kind of stuff. Believe it or not, sweets are more problematic for gout and uric acid. So that's a really important thing to know. But here, the fructose metabolism itself generates uric acid as a byproduct. Elevated uric acid is linked to gout, a painful form of inflammatory arthritis. It also contributes to hypertension, kidney disease, and endothelial dysfunction, which is, the lining of your blood vessels, arteries and blood vessels. Increased oxidative stress and inflammation. Fructose metabolism depletes intracellular energy, ATP, mitochondrial energy, leading to mitochondrial dysfunction. It promotes formation of reactive oxygen species, the free radicals, and the advanced glycation end products, the AGEs. So the AGEs, I really should talk about those sometime. Maybe I'll layer that into, I know I have talked about it before, like when I've talked about benfotiamine, that form of vitamin B1 that we use specifically with diabetics, but it's great for everyone because it prevents the binding of protein to sugar. Age-related glycation end products.
When you see wrinkles, somebody with a lot of wrinkles on their skin, on their face or whatever, it's a lot of age-related glycation end products. It's manifestation of that. It's a demonstration of that kind of thing. But it happens all in our body. What we see on the face is happening somewhere else as well. Of course, that could be related. Like I'm not saying that could be related also to too many sunburns in your lifetime or something like that, sopping up all of your free radicals. Because what is a burn? A burn occurs when all your antioxidants are used up. That's free radical damage right here, reactive oxygen species. So anyway, when we ingest this high fructose corn syrup, it promotes formation of reactive oxygen species and advanced glycation end products, both of which drive inflammation and cellular aging throughout. Why it matters: this oxidative burden contributes to the development of neurodegenerative diseases, atherosclerosis, right, hardening of the arteries, cancer, accelerated aging, chronic disease. And then dyslipidemia, so dysregulation of your blood fats. Fructose boosts production of very low density lipoprotein particles in the liver. It matters because this leads to high triglycerides, small, dense LDL particles, the most atherogenic form, and lower HDL cholesterol, perfect storm for heart disease. This is why I tell people when they show me their lipid panels, I'm most interested in the triglycerides, because the triglycerides are what really tell me this stuff is going on with the liver. So if you've got a high cholesterol and you've got your LDL is, I don't care if it seems like it's higher than what they want and it's in ratio and it looks pretty good. But if your triglycerides are really up there, that's what tells us that you got this stuff going on, fatty liver kind of stuff. And statin drugs don't do anything about that. They don't do anything about your triglycerides. They do nothing about that. They do nothing about the small, dense LDL particles, right? So what does help with that is pantethine, that form of vitamin B5. What does help with that is eating saturated fats, good saturated fats, butter, animal fats from, like, say, lamb, duck, and coconut oil. I think it's not animal fats, but coconut oil, that kind of thing, saturated fats. Make these small, dense LDL particles light and fluffy and harmless. So fructose, so we're eating these processed foods and stuff, we're getting a bunch of this stuff. And I'm telling you, this is behind our chronic diseases of the day. A quick chart summary: the health effect, fatty liver. Fructose drives fat production in the liver. Insulin resistance, fructose increases liver fat, disrupts insulin signaling. Obesity promotes visceral fat, fails to trigger satiety, to end your appetite for that meal or snack or whatever you're eating. Gout and hypertension elevates the uric acid production. Oxidative stress, it generates the reactive oxygen species and the age-related glycation end products. Isn't that funny that the acronym is like so appropriate? AGES. It ages you, those advanced glycation end products. Heart disease raises the very low density lipoprotein, triglycerides, and small dense LDL, which is the really only harmful form of cholesterol, is a small particle LDL. Fructose acts like a stealth bomber. It bypasses normal metabolic defenses, bombards the liver, fuels fat gain, raises uric acid, inflames the body, and sets fire to the mitochondria. I am the mitochondriac. Mitochondrial energy is essential to all of life. And that's that book I talked about in my newsletter last week. Even though I didn't do a program, I mentioned it, and it's called Good Energy. And I'm going to be reading that through carefully. And it's all about how we need to keep our mitochondria young and strong if we want to thwart disease. And it really is the central need of the body. All right, recovery and solutions. Excuse me. You have the body. all of that stuff in it, getting better, crowding it out. And now you're coming into whole food eating. And it looks there like in their diagram, that's all plant food. And I wouldn't say that that's right. But with proper whole animal foods and eggs and all that kind of stuff, you can bring yourself back. You really can. You can heal from the fructose fallout. While chronic and high fructose intake wreaks havoc on the body, the damage is largely reversible. That's super good news because you're like, oh, I'm a mess. I might as well just keep doing what I've been doing and take the medicine my doctor prescribes for it because, I'm hopeless. I've just come too far. No, you can really turn this around. And many of us have seen that in our own lives as we've made changes with our diet. And lifestyle habits. If caught early and addressed consistently by removing the excess fructose burden and supporting mitochondrial and liver recovery, the body has a remarkable ability to heal itself. That's a wonderful thing. You have to have an action plan. Drastically reduce your intake, right? So your primary step, eliminate or minimize foods containing high fructose corn syrup and added fructose. And then how do I do that? Replace processed foods with whole, minimally processed options. Check labels. High fructose corn syrup hides in surprising places, like we said, condiments, bread, yogurt, canned goods. Minimize soft drinks, cut them out. Fruit punches, energy drinks, sweetened teas and commercials, minimize. I would say, if you're in trouble, cut them out. You can find something. If you loved drinking something or eating something and you have to give it up, believe me, there are plenty of things to choose from, and you will find something you really like. You just, do some homework on it and figure it out. If it comes with a nutritional label, read it like you're hunting for buried treasure. That high fructose corn syrup is the booby trap. And then moderate natural fructose from fruits. Now, would we have gotten into all of this trouble if people were eating normal servings of fruits and, things like honey? No, if that's the only fructose they were getting, I would venture to say, absolutely not. But if you're in that state of, having had way too much fructose and you're trying to get that fatty liver decongested and cleaned out, get that fat metabolized out of there and get the fat off your body, that's being created so easily from fructose, then cut back on that. Stick with your berries. Stick with berries and for your fruits and things like that. Avocados, very, very low in fructose. Whole fruits are not the enemy. They deliver fructose encased in fiber, water, vitamins, minerals, and polyphenols, all of which slow absorption and protect the body. Focus on lower fructose fruits when healing, such as berries, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries. We're coming into season, right? Strawberry season right now. Citrus fruits, fine, lemons, limes, grapefruits. Chomp down on that lime. Probably not, but avocados, very low sugar. Limit or temporarily reduce higher fructose fruits like apples, grapes, watermelon, and mangoes during intensive healing phases. Same thing with bananas. I love bananas. You're better with your bananas if they're on the less ripe side. They're resistant starch. It's totally different than when your bananas, like the bananas I ate at the beginning of the week were really very underripe. And then by the time I ate my banana this morning, it was quite ripe. So there's a difference there too. Anyway, that's just a little side thing. And note that fruit juices are not equivalent to whole fruits. They act more like soft drinks due to their concentrated fiberless fructose hit. So yeah, just stay away from those things. If you want some flavor, add some lemon or lime to your water, your seltzer water or whatever, and stay away. But what's really cool is like just doing that, just eliminating things. That's so easy to do. When for a significant improvement to your health. Support your liver and your mitochondrial energy. Nutritional allies, choline, which you get from eggs, liver, sunflower lecithin, critical for fat export from the liver. That's a good thing for me to talk about. I've never talked about choline before for all of that. So critical for fat export from the liver. Omega-3 fatty acids, wild salmon, sardines, flaxseed, reduce liver inflammation. Antioxidants, especially glutathione boosters like NAC, alpha-lipoic acid, and vitamin C, and/or, of course, I go straight to the acetylglutathione because that's just right to the target. You don't have to worry about precursing it. Help to quench the oxidative stress, and also glutathione cleans the liver. This is the first line of defense in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, is raising glutathione to do that. I would say yes, but if you're going to continue to eat that way, you're not going to have very good success. You need to stop eating that way, and then you need to clean up your liver and get it back to where it's happy. Magnesium, crucial for mitochondrial energy production and insulin sensitivity, and the B vitamins are needed for the mitochondrial enzymes to function properly. Super important there. Again, antioxidants, vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin D. Also, I don't know what we call vitamin D an antioxidant. I guess we don't. But again, your antioxidant-rich foods, especially really good quality organic berries, would be a great thing to include in your diet every day. And other veggies and things that are high in antioxidants, such as bell peppers and tomatoes and all kinds of things like that. So lifestyle strategies, time-restricted eating has been found to help the liver have time to detoxify and clear excess fat. It's one of the things that happens when people do the intermittent fasting. It's not for everyone. Some people say, it just doesn't agree with me. Doesn't really work for me or whatever, but that's a really good thing to do, is to give your liver some time to detoxify and clear excess fat. Physical activity, of course, clearing that excess fat in the liver is what helps you lose weight, fat around the rest of your body. In fact, I remember Louise Gittleman, the Fat Flush Plan, her whole program with that sort of approach, it starts with the liver. And she's all about liver cleansing for the first few weeks or whatever. It's all about cleaning the liver, because you cannot lose weight on your body if you don't clean the liver. So super important. Think of your liver like a kitchen. It needs time to clean up the mess before you bring in more groceries. Don't you notice that? Weekly, we tend to clean out a refrigerator, and it's like so fun to get everything out and get all new stuff in there. It's not all like cluttered combination of old and new. So you want to clean up the mess before you bring in more groceries. Choose safer sweeteners. If sweeteners are desired, again, cut back on your sweeteners so that you don't really want them. Again, if you put up with the initial, oh, that doesn't taste so great, like I would if I stopped drinking a little honey in my tea, do that for a day, and then I'd be like, ooh, if I put honey in there, that's way too sweet. So try that. But if you do want to use a sweetener or whatever, stevia, neutral, 0 calorie, does not impact blood sugar. Monk fruit extract, so you get stevia here. Monk fruit. My husband and my daughter like to use like a drop of in their coffee or whatever. They have a liquid stevia they really like, and I think that blends really better in the liquid. Monk fruit extract, erythritol, a sugar alcohol with minimal gut fermentation. Raw local honey in moderation, though it contains fructose, is paired with antioxidants and used sparingly in whole foods diets like I do. I've got to get the honey I'm using right now is from Israel. I have like 4 really exquisite honeys from Israel, but with this whole allergy thing, and I forgot to talk about that when I was talking about allergies. Local honey, using local honey really helps desensitize you to the pollens in your area. Important, the goal is not just to swap one sweetener for another, but to reset your taste buds toward enjoying less sweetness overall. So quick recovery checklist. Fructose may have hijacked our metabolism, but with awareness, good food, and daily steps towards healing, we can reclaim our vitality, one mitochondrion at a time. So goal, cut fructose sources, eliminate HFCS and limit processed foods, support liver, eat choline-rich foods, omega-3s, antioxidants, heal the mitochondria, prioritize magnesium, B vitamins, glutathione. Speaking my language here, those of you who know me. Reset sweetness and threshold, use stevia, monk fruit if needed, encourage repair, practice time-restricted eating and daily movement. So that brings us to the end. I almost kept to exactly an hour. That was pretty cool. Don't just go with the flow. Go with the no. If you go with the flow, you're just going to get chronic disease. And we're all busy. If you don't do things intentionally, it's not like you're just a slob or something and you're just, you're just lazy or whatever. You can really think you're making some really good choices. So become a really avid label reader. Make changes like this can change your life. And with changes that you see pretty quickly so that you're encouraged, right? You start to lose a few pounds, you start to feel better. And you're like, wow, this really works. And I'm just going to be encouraged to do that. So, so go for it, do it. Would like to just thank you all for being with me today. And again, I enjoy just sharing these things with everyone, things that are interesting to me that really pertain to things that matter in our lives. And I hope you enjoy it too. I will be back next week with, again, I think I'm going to continue on this series about getting away from, in our diet, the C.R.A.P crap. And see, just be a little bit more revealing about what we are eating and how we can stay away from it and what we can do better. So anyway, have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you again next week. Bye. Thank you, everybody.